afternoon, good evening, good morning, Fabulites. This is Angela, and I have got questions for you. What starts off with Miss Kenya meeting up with the director, photographer for her PSA, and what closes with us seeing the PSA being filmed and coming together? If you guessed the Real Housewives of Atlanta, last night's edition, I don't have it on my notes, but the one that came on last night, you're correct. You'll see it in the title. Thank you so much for clicking on the video and sticking around to see how we get from opening to closing. I am Angela, and the channel is Be Fabulous You. So, it was kind of a non-eventful episode. I only have 3 pages of notes, so that's not very much, but let's proceed. So we got Kenya arriving at Derek's office. I think that he did some photographic work for the Real Housewives of Atlanta before, I believe. But she says that he's going to be the director of her domestic violence PSA, and her goal is to air it on national TV. Well, the PSA hasn't aired on national TV that I know of, but the making of the PSA was tonight's episode. The making of the PSA. So, Kenya, did Sheree just come from Kim to... Oh. So when Sheree arrives in her interview, green screen, Kenya is like, did Sheree just come from Kim Zolciak's trash bin? Who says trash bin in America? Where you been, girl? Did she just come from her trash bin? Because she had on another blonde wig. I thought it was the same blonde wig from the interview. I was hoping it was the same blonde wig from the interview, because I'm like, well, it looks better. Maybe it's just something wrong with the lighting, or that's not, that clashes with the lighting where they do the green screen interviews. But my mother pointed out it was a whole different wig. But I was just so blinded by the blondness. I just thought it was the same old blonde, another, But so that's why Kenya is making a joke of her look or whatever. And Sheree says she's not really familiar. So Sheree feels like it should be a Sheree and Kenya production. She, expresses that she thought they were going to work on it together. She doesn't understand why she's just being, like talent. Why can't she be the boss too? And it kind of reminds you, if anybody saw, there was this reality show called The Next 15. I think it was The Next 15, not The Last 15, but The Next 15. And it focused on different reality stars and them trying to figure out how to get their next 15 minutes of fame. And one of the storylines was how New York from Flavor of Love, who also became her own breakout star from Flavor of Love and had other I Love New York, dating shows, and New York Goes to Hollywood dating shows. And when I first got back on cable, I had been off cable. And when I first got back on cable, I saw like Flavor of Love in a marathon, and like I Love New York. And I'm like, what has the world come to while I wasn't watching cable TV? What in the world? I was just like, oh, shocked. Appalled and drawn into the messiness. But on that show, New York is like, she feels like she should be executive producer. And the child who used to be on The Real Housewives of Atlanta, I can't remember her name. She's half Italian, half black. She used to work with Dish Nation too, but not exactly the same place or way that baby girl Portia does. But she was like, well, what are you doing to be producer? And New York is like, I want to be producer because I want to be producer, and I said what I said, so you better make me a producer right now. She's kind of, so that's kind of what I thought Sheree was about to do. And so Kenya is like, well, what are you, in terms of what do you want to do to help? And Sheree is like, well, I'm not really familiar with being behind the scenes and behind the camera. But I want to do something. And Kenya is like, well, do you want to be my intern? Which I can understand, like the way that it was in the previews, it made it almost seem like an insult. But having seen the exchange, I'm like, well, that's the perfect, whether you call it intern or not, if you want to shadow somebody and do a few things and get the opportunity to learn and grow and develop, then that's kind of like interning. We call it an externship. You could call it a apprentice. I don't know, but for one project, it can't be an apprenticeship. But anyway, I guess it could be whatever you want to call it. But Sheree gets offended at the term intern, we saw in the preview, she's like, does all of this look like an intern? And I'm like, kinda, sorta. um, and Kenya is basically like, she invited her to be talent, so, I don't know. Okay, so then we see Marlo. It doesn't escalate into anything much, and we go on to the next scene. We see Marlo and Sheree, and they share a lot of laughs and a lot of cocktails at Marlo's. And Marlo, is it Sheree? No, it must be Nene. Marlo and Nene at Marlo's, and they're laughing and drinking, and Marlo pitches a tea party to get Portia and Nene back together. Maybe it's not Marlo and Sheree. Maybe it's Marlo and Cynthia. I mean, Marlo and Cynthia. I don't know who Marlo was, because Sheree wasn't in on the tea party, so it must have been Cynthia. So, Marlo is like, yeah, let's do this tea party to get Nene and Portia back together. Because if I had issues with Nene and we cool, and you had issues with Nene and we cool, and so we think that Portia and Nene can be cool too. And Portia never showed that she's grateful. I was there for her when she so maybe it's Nene. Girl, I don't know who was at the pre-tea party planning thing, because this says that I think this is what Nene said. Portia never showed that she was grateful. I was there for her when she dragged Kenya off the couch, and I was there for her when she was going through her divorce, but I'm willing to have a tea party. Let's see what happens. And then we're at Cynthia's, and Noelle comes into the kitchen, and Noelle is not sure if her mom could keep up with her spin class. Noelle's like, oh, I'm coming from spin class. And Cynthia's like, yeah, I need to go to a spin class. And Noelle is like, it's hard for me to keep up, and I'm a young lady. And Cynthia's like, what you trying to say, basically? But, whatever. And then while Cynthia's talking to Noelle, Will calls, and she's, he like, what you doing? She like, oh, I'm making some vegetarian linguine or whatever. And he was like, the mailman putting the mail through the door. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And Will is like, well, I would have come over if you put some turkey in it. She like, I could put some turkey in it. I mean, I could put a whole turkey. I could go get a whole turkey and roast it. Just joking around. But he can't eat. He if it don't have meat, he won't eat it. I don't understand. But I don't understand. I don't understand. Because it's been so long that I've been vegetarian and around people who have a certain consciousness that stuff just seems so weird, and like, it seems foolish to me. I'm not saying it is foolish. I'm just saying, to me, I'm like, I don't understand. What are you saying? Like, if someone gave, but anyway, let me just shut up. So, we know that Will is still in the mix, and then Cynthia gets a text also inviting her to the tea party with Nene and Portia. So it must have been Nene that was over at Miss Marlowe's place, Marlo Hampton's place, the Hamptons. Then we see Candy. She's at the old lady gang, and she's being the owner, like the hostess with the mostest. She mixing and mingling with the guests. How is everything? Let me take that out of your way. She doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing as owner. You got to use the force of your power, your personality, your presence, your fame to make up for anything that needs to be made up for and take it to the next level. So that's what she has to offer. She doing that. I like to see that girl do that thing, Miss Candy. And then the old lady gang comes in, like, Candy's mama and a couple of her sisters. I think it's two sisters come in, and before that, Todd had come in, and then the old lady gang is like, hey, we want to talk, about employees. So Candy and Todd or whatever are like, well, let's go downstairs and talk. And they go down into the basement, and the old lady gang is like, we want some changes. We need to talk to y'all about what's going on with the restaurant. And we find out from Candy in her interview that a couple of the aunties are in food service in their church or whatever. So they have some opinions, and they've been to restaurants, so they know some things. And Mama Mama Candy's mama of Candy, starts talking, and it's kind of like she in a loop or something, like, spit it out, girl, spit it out, mama. And after some time, we find out that mama feels it is too crowded at the hostess area, and she wants to rework that. And then one of the aunties feels like the cooks come out and they looking dirty and smoking. I can't stand that in a restaurant, when someone comes out of the kitchen with their apron on. I feel like, leave your apron in the kitchen. The apron is supposed to be like a clean, sanitized, kitchen safe work surface. If I see you back by the garbage smoking, or outside smoking, it's like, I don't like it. And then pants hanging off their behinds and everything. She feel like they not looking good. And then another auntie is also concerned about, appearance, but her appearance concern is about the uniforms of the staff. She not feeling it. You got to get some people in. And then they talking about needing a new general manager, that they haven't had a general manager. They lost their general manager. And, one of the aunties or the old lady gang is like, you got to get some people in that's going to be honest, that's going to care, and that's going to want to stay. And Todd is like, yeah, we got to get a new manager. And then all are like, well, God bless him. And I'm thinking, well, why couldn't it be a her? Why did the new general manager got to be a man? I don't understand. But anyway, then we see Portia arriving at work, and Ricky Smiley, she's kind of having a little interaction with him, and Portia is like, you didn't smell me today. And then he smells her, and then she's like, what am I wearing, or whatever. And he's like, oh, you're wearing, whatever. And he tells her what fragrance it is. And then she smells him, and she's like, oh, you're wearing, whatever fragrance he wearing. And they done guessed it right. And, I think that's what we thought was a kiss. It was them smelling each other. That's what I think is going on. And he smells her. And Portia says that Ricky isn't her boss, so I was kind of confused by that. I don't really know. I thought Ricky was her boss, but she say he not her boss. And she says nothing is off limits unless she says so. And I said, okay. And then we see Portia going into hair and makeup, and Marlo calls to follow up with her text invitation to the tea. And Portia's like, well, who's coming? And Marlo is like, well, me, you, Nene, and Cynthia. And Portia's like, well, I've never been invited, with y'all before. And Marlo is like, well, come on, girl, come on. And then Portia is like in the interview, well, I hope Cynthia can say to Nene what she said to me about Nene and Cynthia falling out and getting back together. And I hope that Marlo can say something, can give me some tips about how to get back together with Nene. And, she's hopeful about the results of the tea. She's looking forward to it. Then we see Candy at Sheree's, and Candy follows up on Sheree's homework to talk with her children about the domestic violence. Remember, she had practiced with Candy, so she follows up with that. And then they talk about that Kenya sent them the PSA script, and Sheree is like, well, I told her I wanted to help and do something, and she ain't followed up with me. All I got was this script, but I'm not gonna beg her to donate my time. And it's kind of like and then they talk about Nene calling Sheree's man a con artist. And Sheree is like, Nene and Greg both have mug shots. So I don't know who she's talking about now. Who she needs to not be talking or whatever. And then Candy is like, so when he get out, is he going to move in here? And Sheree is like, well, not initially. I'm not a fool. And I think Candy was like, well, I've been a fool sometimes. And you get the impression that she's, learned from some experience. Then we're at Marlo's place, and Cynthia's arriving for the tea at the Hamptons. I love that. Cynthia's like, well, I've been to the Hamptons in New Jersey. You haven't been to the Hamptons before, Marlo says. I was like, okay, girl. And then we see Portia arriving to tell the girls how she's feeling. She's like, I just want to tell them how I'm feeling or whatever. Then Cynthia's hips are out. Oh, nips. I think Portia tells Cynthia that her nips are out, and Cynthia's getting her nips all in. She like, I don't know why my nips are always out. Instead of being called 50 Cent, I should be called Titty Cent. And I'm like, now, is she writing these lines? Did she hire somebody to write lines for her? Because I think her little commentary is just getting funnier and funnier to me. And probably, I guess, because she had those fake boobs, she's probably wearing different types of things. Because I guess everybody's into showing under boob when you have fake boob, or when you're real young, you can show under boob. So I guess that the whole getting that coverage together is a process. Um, and then they're, drinking and hanging out or whatever, drinking tea, and Cynthia is like, wait a second, this tea or something, and she finds out that it's cranberry and vodka. And I'm like, well, what kind of mediation are they having where they drinking? That sounds like a recipe for some mess and some confusion. But anyway, Cynthia, Portia, doesn't understand, so Marlo is like, well, this is very peaceful, and I want it to be peaceful. I don't want it to be how it was in San Francisco, and we got over our stuff. And Cynthia's like, yeah, we got over our stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then, Nene is her regular petty, mean-spirited self. And then Portia's like, she doesn't understand the petty. And I'm like, she don't understand the petty. Has she met Nene before? I mean, why wouldn't... Come on now, gal. And then during Portia's divorce, Nene says that they spoke, 5 times a week. Oh, no, Portia says that during my divorce, we spoke like 5 times a week. And I tweeted for you when you were on Broadway and when you were on Dancing with the Stars. And Nene is like, tweeting for me ain't the same as being a friend. And, you could find time to talk to me when you were down and out. But then when you were better, you couldn't answer my text for a whole week. When you were on the upswing, you couldn't answer my text for a whole week. And Portia's like, it was only 2 texts that I didn't answer. And Nene's like, no, it wasn't. It was more. But even if it was just 2, basically the same thing. When you was, down and out, you could answer my text. And now that things are on the upswing for you, you can't answer my text. What kind of friend is that? That don't seem friendly to me. Nene is like, whatever. I'm sorry for whatever harm that I've caused Portia. However you feel, however Portia feels. And the people are like, could you be sincere? And Nene is like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And Portia is like, it's not sincere. I can see it. I'm like, yeah, girl, we can all see it. And then Nene kind of looks at her with a blank stare. And then i.e. like, yep, it's not sincere. I'm just saying some stuff, and let's keep it moving. And then we see... that's the end of that scene, basically. Then we see Don Juan, Candy, and Todd meeting with the new general manager candidate. And we find out that 71% of the online reviews over the last month have been 3 stars or less. So I wonder if they lost their general manager during the last month, and that's what's going on. That's what the applicant says. And Todd likes... the guy. Don Juan is concerned about if the guy can really, is really tough enough to, handle Todd and Candy's toughness. And also, like, if if Candy's mama comes in and is, carrying on, how is he going to handle that? Because, he's like, well, how are you under pressure? And the guy is like, well, I'm great under pressure. That's my strength. But what else are you supposed to say in a interview? Oh, I'm terrible under pressure. I crumble. And, if things get tough, I'm going to run out of here, kicking and screaming. Of course, you're going to say, oh, I'm excellent under pressure. That's when I shine like a diamond, shine bright like a diamond. But anyway, so they're interviewing for people for the restaurant. And then we're at shooting day for Kenya's domestic violence PSA. And we see, I didn't know this, that Shamia is going to be in and Cynthia's mom are going to be in. And they're both going to be doing testimonies of their personal experience with domestic violence. And then the other ladies are all doing scripted parts. So although Nene has been experienced domestic violence, she is not talking about her personal experience. And when we hear Shamia giving her story, her voice is shaking, and it's kind of like I was kind of like, ooh, I feel it. And then that part where she was talking about when the guy knocked her out of her shoes, and it was like the one pair of expensive shoes she had, but not that idea, but that he knocked her out of her shoes, and how, it's kind of like, ooh, like you hear about people having accidents, car accidents and stuff, and being thrown out of their shoes. So it was kind of like, I don't know, that like made a big impression on me. And then Cynthia was a baby, we find out, and pretty young when her mother was dealing with domestic violence, and Candy gets there, and then we see where we find out that Sheree is like missing in action. She was expected at this time, but she hasn't arrived as well after that time. Then Nene arrives, and Cynthia and Nene and Candy do their parts. Then Kenya is getting her makeup done, and she calls Sheree, and we find out that Sheree was in a car accident, which we had found out from the previews the last time. And I'm kind of like, she should have asked the woman, "Where are you?" when I was watching that scene, because I'm like, I don't know if you've ever been in an accident, but when I was in an accident, it was kind of like I was dazed and confused and disoriented. So Sheree, I don't know. So when she got off the phone with Sheree, it was like, she's like, "Are you okay? An accident? What kind of accident?" Oh, no, 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 all of this other talking. But if something had happened and she had gotten disconnected from Sheree, she wouldn't know. Is the ambulance there? Is she going to the hospital? Is she dead? Is she alive? Is she in a ditch? Where is she at? Where was she heading? You wouldn't be able to like follow up with it, and that kind of stressed me out. So my PSA is that if you are ever in a car accident and you call someone, the first thing you should say is, "I've been in a car accident." The second thing you should say, as closely as you can, is where you are, and then say, "I'm okay," or "I'm not okay," or "I called the ambulance," or whatever. But you know. And then Kenya says that she hopes that Sheree is okay, so that Sheree does not miss out on the taping of the PSA. And I'm kind of like, huh? I hope that she's okay, because I don't want her to be dead or hurt or whatever. And then Cynthia's mom records, and then Kenya holds Cynthia back during her mother's recording from trying to go to her mother when her mother is telling her story, and gets upset. And then at the end, Kenya is like, "Well, do you think your children are proud of you?" And the mom is like, "Well, I hope my children are proud of me." And then, Kenya unleashes Cynthia, and she goes and "Oh, mommy," and she rubs her and, comforts her, and says, "I'm proud of you." So that was really, it was beautiful, I think. And then Portia arrives, and she does her taping of her part. Then Sheree arrives, and she's talking about her back is hurting. And I'm like, what is she doing there? Don't she need to go to the hospital? And then, I guess Sheree has a pre-existing back problem, because she mentioned something, and she goes into the bathroom. And then Kenya comes into the bathroom, and she's like, "Sheree, what's going on?" And it's kind of like, the woman was in a car accident, remember? Like, what do you mean, what's going on? So I think you need to be like, "Girl, you need to go to the hospital." But so she doesn't go to the hospital. I'm surprised, but Sheree tapes, and then you have the 6 women from the Real Housewives of Atlanta, the cast. They're all in white tops, and they say one word each. There is no excuse for abuse. And then, it's kind of like, it's like a beautiful unified moment. And then Cynthia's mom, this is like looping back. Cynthia's mom had never spoken with her about domestic violence, just like Sheree hadn't spoken with her children about the domestic violence. So that was interesting. That's basically the end of the episode. Even with Miss Phaedra not being on the show, they managed to do something, progressive, and something productive. I like when I see them doing something productive and something of service to, something greater than them making money and them, acting foolish on the TV, on these television streets. So, the PSA looks nice. I hope I don't know what the process is. I would think people would just play a PSA on TV. You could get it on national TV easy. I don't know what the process is though. So, good luck with that, Mama Kenya, Miss Kenya. And that's it. Tyra and Nene were on Watch What Happens Live, but I don't think I left room. I had room on my paper to write notes if anything exciting happened, but I can't remember if something happened. I guess I forgot to write it down. But that's what I got. Thank you for sharing, commenting, subscribing. Welcome, 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 new subscribers. Welcome, 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 old subscribers. If this is your first time watching, please consider subscribing if you haven't already hit that subscription button. Comment, share, like. I already said all of that. Today is the best day ever. So the only thing I need you to do for now is to be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous you. Be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous you.